Hello, everybody. I'm an alcoholic. My name's Keith. By God's grace, Alcoholics Anonymous, rooms full of people like you and a little bit of effort on my own. I'm not taking a drink of alcohol, nor have I used any kind of narcotic since May 11th, 1976. And for that, I'm extremely grateful. I'm privileged to be here with my wife this weekend. We get to do these things quite often. And we're always introduced as Sue and Keith, so I've got used to that. That's why she's talking tomorrow, and I'm Friday night. But at any rate, I want to thank the committee for that little bit of humility, and I'm glad the tapes are cheap, and I want to thank John for his Jeep. He's been escorting us around here this weekend. We've left 80-degree weather and spared no expense to get here so we could play in the snow. We took pictures of snow and sent it to people who've never seen it. Who don't understand why would you go there, you know. Well, anyway, and certainly it's good to be able to participate in my recovery with my wife and her Al-Anon program, her Al-Anon friends who so graciously helped us out. John picked us up at the airport yesterday. I think it was yesterday. Time flies. Anyway, and we come all the way to Lincoln from Omaha, and I said, well, where are we going? We're lost, but we're making real good time. And so we called Dale. He was in school, learning how to be something, a student. And then we called somebody else, and they were working, God forbid. That anybody on the committee would have a job in the middle of the afternoon. And finally I said, pull over and let's get something to eat because we're getting too angry here. We need some food. And call an Al-Anon. So Sue called the Al-Anon liaison and found out where we were going and where we were supposed to be and where our room was. And so it took the entire broad sweep of the program to get us here, find our room, and get a cookie and calm down. Come and hear John last night from Plano, from Dallas. John gave great delivery last night. I'm proud of him. I sent a copy of his talk. I turned my phone on and I recorded on my phone and sent it by mail last night to my friends down in Dallas so they could critique him. They must have approved because they didn't stop him this afternoon when he was going. So we're all here because we're not all there. And I'm really grateful that we got to mention my friends. Give a big wave for the people from Des Moines. Des Moines, yeah. Came all the way over here from Des Moines to participate in recovery, AAs and Al-Anons and others. And I'm sure we'll infect them. They'll probably go screaming out here, headed back to Des Moines after this meeting. But anyway, it's good to be in an AA meeting. When I'm in an AA meeting, the world is a safer place. I can assure you. Everybody that knows me, my friends and my enemies, are glad that I'm in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And most of all, I'm glad to be in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And when I'm in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, exactly right on time, right in my spot. And I didn't want to be an alcoholic. I didn't plan to be an alcoholic. I I was born into it. I don't know if I was an alcoholic when I had my first drink, but when I had my first drink, an alcoholic was born. And I was born and reared into an alcoholic family of many generations. That's not necessary if you're wondering if you're supposed to be from a family of alcoholics. I was at least a fifth generation. That's as far as I wanted to check. But I mention that primarily because in my case, all the character defects of my predecessors rolled down into me. I got to be the family's best, worst example. You know, there was Dad, who was an alcoholic lawyer. And brother, did I need a lawyer. Let me tell you, I was glad Dad went to law school. And then his dad, who was a judge, and a drunken judge and a drunken lawyer. I ended up in jail, drunk tank, with my dad. And I said, how are you going to represent me? And he said, don't worry, I know the judge. Oh, ye of little faith. And so I went. I got in trouble. When I drank, I got in trouble. And right away, the first time I was incarcerated for alcohol-related was in 1952. That was before it was fashionable to get a star on your eye or a star on your elbow or any kind of facial tattoos from being in the penitentiary. You were just a thug. They threw you in there and didn't know what to do with you. And that didn't hurt me. You know, some rigorous discipline never hurts an alcoholic. We don't volunteer for it, but if we're going to be locked up, we might as well go along with the deal. You know, what the heck. And I learned then, it don't make any difference whether you're pitching or catching, you're still playing ball, baby, let me tell you that. You'll get that in a minute. I mean, out here in Nebraska, yeah, I know. In California, they laugh immediately, but in Nebraska, it's a ripple effect. Anyway, yeah. But you probably have animals in your four-step here. Yeah. There's 300 alkies and related in this room, but there's at least 400 horses' asses over there in that building. Yeah, baby. At least they're over there. Anyway, none of that bothered, really, it was good for me. Good for me. Matter of fact, I got out and got married and got in trouble. I was in jail down Fort Worth, Texas, and my father-in-law come to see me, and I had a lot of money, and I said, wow, good to see you, Dad. And he said, I have a lot of money, and I said, I know that. And he said, the reason I have a lot of money is because I don't make bad investments, and you're a bad investment. And they annulled me. That was the beginning of my abandonment issues. I didn't realize that. Later on, when I was getting psychotherapy, where I could have told them, I know what happened. Yeah, they abandoned me when I needed them. But they did. They took off, and she took off, and I had to go be locked up again. And it's strange enough, the concept speaker today referred to the non-alcoholic trustee World Service. His name was Jim Estelle. And his father was the warden of the penitentiary that I went to. And Jim Estelle and I both have shared the podium, and I told him I needed to make amends to his father. Of course, he was already dead, but that's the only way I'd make amends to a warden. But ironically, the Jim Estelle and I both have shared the podium at different H&I hospital and institution conferences, and a great man, a great man. But anyway, little history there. I got out, I went home, because I go home. I got $100 and a new suit and a bottle of whiskey, and got on the train, took off to do my first, fourth, and fifth step. I drank and rode my little train back home and looked back over my life, and I knew I needed to stay out of them honky-tonk bars. I needed to stay with them wild women and stay out of them fast cars and stay away from them guys that want to start fights all the time. And the train pulled into the train station, and my two very best friends, Oily and Goose, were sitting there waiting on me in a pickup truck. And we got a push start and took a drink of White Lightning and a handful of mini bennies and went to a dance. And I did my first fifth step with those guys on the way to that dance. I said, I need to stay away from guys like you, and they agreed. I need to stay out of them honky-tonk bars, and they agreed. I need to stay away from them wild women, and they agreed. And I walked into that dance, and I grabbed a Coke bottle, rolled it down, bumped the stage, and I said, let the meanest sucker in the house bring that back. And it looked like a stampede come my direction. And I punched the first guy leading the charge. Then I ducked into the woman's restroom. I may be sick, but I'm not stupid. And as I went in the woman's restroom, there was a lady standing there, and I said, tell me when the fight's over. And I went in and hid in a stall. Pretty soon she stuck her head in and said, you can come out now, the fight's over, and the band's playing. And that was little Susie. That was 53 years ago. And she's still waiting for the band. I told her then, I said, stick with me, baby. I'll take you places you've never been before. Lincoln, Nebraska. Yeah, heck yeah. Anyway, we had a dance. I found out she had a job and a car and a place to stay. Driver's license, none of which did I have. So I said, where you been all my life? And she said, where you been? I said, I just got out of the penitentiary. She said, I just got out of an unwed mother's home. I said, why don't we go together and give two people a break? And we dated. That's not funny, honey. We dated for 2 weeks, and they nicknamed us Hatchet and Hammer. It had to be love. It was just too crazy and violent to be anything but love. And it was just insane, and so we moved in together. And they said it wouldn't work, and after a couple of years, where she said she was pregnant, and I don't remember having that discussion. I must have been crossing over the invisible line when we had that discussion. But anyway, I'm a joiner. So we got married, settled down in a little upstairs apartment, and I got a job, and she had a job, and we decided to make a little happy home. We got a dog, a rabbit with ringworm, and a few things that are necessary to make the outside look like you're under control. That didn't work, so we did a geographic. And my folks said, he needs education, and I've always volunteered to go to school. That's easier than working. And so I was a student for 21 years. I never really learned much, but I know where the information is. So we went to school, and we had a little girl, and I was doing criminal things, selling the football team final tests, and I was a major supplier of outside issues that would keep you up so you could study to pass your tests, things like that. And I got in trouble, and we had to leave town. So my friend Lion Shorty told me that I could get a job on a ranch 40 miles west of Long Beach, California. That's ocean. Yeah. Anyway, or ye of little faith. So we take off from Oklahoma to go to California. And it took us about 30 days to get there because I'm lost a lot. And she said, why don't you stop and ask somebody where we are? And I said, then they'll know I'm lost. I don't want to ask anybody where. But anyway, we made it, got in there, and I got a job, and we got a place to live, and we started out our little geographic. It really wasn't geographic. It was unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. And so we set up a little camp there, and got a house right next to some hippies. I'd never seen nothing like that down in Oklahoma City. Hippies, they were taking their clothes off, laying naked in the front yard, dropping acid, watching the sun come up and go down. That's an interesting group of people. And motorcycle gang on the other side, they were over there doing strange things that kept them up for days. And I just drank and had fun. I always shot the fireworks off on Christmas. I was supposed to shoot off on the 4th of July. And drank the eggnog on 4th of July that I was supposed to drink at Christmas, just out of sync. But I was in jail a lot when you're supposed to be celebrating those things. And so I never could get it down. And I finally ended up standing in front of a judge. And the judge had my file in front of him. And he was talking about me, and he had the right guy. And he was talking about the fact that I'd been arrested 57 times for assault and battery and resisting arrest in a 10-block area of my house. That was because she would call the cops before I had a 2-block running start. For God's sake, give me at least a 2-3-block running start before you call them. They're waiting outside the door. That's not fair. Those were the days back in the late 60s and early 70s before they shot you. Don't try that now. They shoot you. They'll shoot you right away. But at any rate, I escaped, and so the judge said I should go to A&A. I didn't know what A&A was, but I've been doing B&B, and it wasn't working. And he told me that if I didn't go to A&A, he was going to lock me up for 3 to 5. And I didn't have to ask him what that meant. And so he had this guy coming, little Ivan Miller. Ivan Miller was a machinist who took stuff out of his lathe that was heavy, and when he'd get it out of there, he'd boom, and his arms touched the ground because he wouldn't let go of whatever it was, that kind of a thing. Anyway, so Ivan Miller, he looked like he's drunk today. He had 9 years sober. And Ivan Miller come to the courthouse, and the judge gave me to Ivan. Now, I wasn't the best candidate in the courtroom. I had been in a fight, and I lost. And somebody hit me upside the head with a crescent, and I'd been laying in the ward over at the hospital, and they sewed my ear back on. And I had this blood-soaked earmuff on. I had a long beard and long hair, had a tank top, wife beater that was all bloody, a pair of cut-off shorts, no shoes, no socks, no underwear, and no identification. Standing there in front of the judge that day, I was traveling pretty light. But he recognized me right off, so Ivan got me and took me to my house and said, there's a meeting right around the corner. He showed me a meeting in a church, and he said, there's a meeting around there at 8:30. Be there. Oh, okay. So I laid down on this old vinyl couch, and I bled out on it and stuck to it. Now, I'd been going in and out of AA for years. They knew me. They knew me. They saw me come. They saw me come back. They saw me come. They saw me come back. They never knew. But she comes in, and she's been to a new lawyer. And she gets home from work at 6, and she's got this butcher knife waving around. I like guns myself. But she had this butcher knife, and she'd been to see a new lawyer, and the new lawyer told her to take me to AA. I already had a court card. I was already been to court, and so she comes in, and she says, I know what's wrong. You need to go to AA. So I let her think it was her idea, and said, yeah, I know, there's a meeting over here. I called him. So at 8 o'clock, she come over there with her butcher knife, peeled me off the couch, and got me in the family wagon, a baby poop brown Pinto with no reverse. You had to drive it up through the neighbor's yard and park, anyway. And so we go to my first meeting. My house was painted 4 different colors because I lost interest easy. Good intentions, but lost interest easy. My dog jumped in there. My German Shepherd, who chewed all the hair off his body everywhere his mouth would reach, had splotches and chew marks like laughing hyena, and he snarled. And the cat had a permanent puff tail, and Sue had one of them big beehive hairdos that put about 1.5 cans of spray net in, and the window on the Pinto was half down or half up, so when she drove her work car to work, it would blow her head over here, and her hair looked like the Leaning Tower of Pizza. I got my blood-soaked earmuff on. I'm tore up from the floor up. The kid looks like a wounded animal. We all load up in the Pinto to go to my first AA meeting. And we pull up out in front of this church, and they had a big AA sign out there. And I remember she pulled up out there, and I remember looking in there, much like tonight probably, people sitting in there. And I remember thinking, well, I've sunk to the bottom now. If my friends see me going in here, they'll never have anything to do with me again. That's called low-bottom snobbery coming from my house, I'll tell you. She checked that right away, hit me with that butcher knife, and said, what time's the meeting over? I said, I think it's over at 10. She said, I'm going to tell you something, Ace. If your ass comes out of that door before 10, I'm going to gut you. Now, you can keep me in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. You got a crazy woman circling the perimeter out there. Maybe he's sick, but I ain't stupid. I ain't going out there. I passed out on her one time, 15 minutes into a 2-hour conversation. They don't like that. I had an old T-shirt on and passed out on my stomach, and she stabbed me all over my back. And hours later, I come to her and said, God, what's wrong with my back? She said, oh, let me see. Did you broke out of acne of the back? Let me get the rubbing alcohol and put on you. Perpetual revenge, yes. I knew, so I stayed in the meeting. She took me over there for a number of weeks, dropped me off on Monday night. That's all I went back home, laid on the couch. She'd come and get me, take me to that meeting, and I didn't drink or use nothing. I was as dry as a fire hazard. And finally, she let me go by myself, and I went by the meeting and waved bye to them. And went and got drunk, because that's what I do. I drink. And so I got drunk. And I went to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous in the next few years. I went drunk and sobered up in a meeting. I went to a meeting sober and got drunk in a meeting. I came out of a blackout in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's scary. I would have left, but I didn't know who brought me. And I did that more out than in for the next number of years. I know what it's like to stand in my kitchen, look down the hallway, a little 9-year-old girl standing at the end of that hallway, got a bottle of vodka in my hand, and I look down at her. She's looking at me, and I turn around and I take a drink out of that bottle. When I look back, she's gone. She just wanted to know which direction I was going so she could go the other way. I know what it's like to crawl out of the back of that house on my hands and my knees, lip-dragging drunk, gurgling down the hallway into my daughter's bedroom and reach underneath her bed and pull her Raggedy Ann piggy bank out and bust it. And a big-time Charlie like me, I'm separating the pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters because I'm not going to be showing nothing but silver when I go down to Connections house for the liquor store. And that little girl hiding in the closet watching me steal her money. I know what it's like to let her shoot out behind me without inflicting any more pain in her life because she caught me in that pitiful, incomprehensible, demoralizing situation one more time. I know what it's like to wake up and jump straight up out of my bed, drunk in the middle of the night, and look at that lady that I love beyond anything I know, the mother of my child, and to see black eye, bruise, and listen to see if she's breathing, because it's just a matter of time till I kill her. I know what it's like to run down the hallway and put my ear down next to that little girl and listen to see if she's breathing, because it's just a matter of time till I kill her. You know why? Because they love me. Because they love me. And I hated me. I loathed me. And I couldn't stop it. I know what it's like to stand in my bathroom and I'm putting that stuff in me because I just move on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I'm loading up. I look in the mirror and I see a little 10-year-old girl looking through the hole in the door in that bathroom where I probably stuck my foot. And her eyes caught mine for just a second. And she didn't say, "Daddy, what are you doing? Please don't beat me and Mommy." She just looked at me for a second, and my eyes caught hers, and whatever was going on inside of me screaming. There's no sound coming out of my mouth, but there's something screaming inside. If there's anything out there, please stop this thing. I had no idea that I had a phenomena of craving. I'm the type of an alcoholic that has a phenomena of craving that is more powerful than anything, including God. That phenomena of craving made me do what I did to the people I love the most. No matter how I prayed, no matter what I joined, no matter what I pledged, no matter what I said, no matter what you said, that phenomena of craving made me pick up again and again and again and again. And I know what it's like to go to AA loaded on drugs, and I couldn't stay clean. I know what it's like to go to NA and drinking, and I couldn't stay clean because the phenomena of craving kept the motor running. It wouldn't let it stop. And till May 1976, May of 1976, I ran out of friends and enemies at the same time. I ran out of running room. Running room was gone, Slick. No more running room. I had no other place to go. I ran out of enablers. And I cried out for help one last time, and thank God people in Alcoholics Anonymous was there. They captured me, and they put me in a detox. I'm not a product of a country club, anything like that. They put me in a detox so that I would detox. Nothing. How about some hard candy and Valium? Nothing, Slick, nothing. The guy that was running that detox, they just started it. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And we tried to get me in everywhere, and I'd been in everywhere. Nobody'd take me. Some places they wouldn't take me because I had tracks on my arm. Some places this and that and the other. And there was a brand new detox in Orange, California. And it so happened that Dr. Paul Oliger had just started that detox. Dr. Paul, addict, alcoholic, the story's in a big book. He was writing that story at that time. And they brand new detox, they got a hold of Dr. Paul. He didn't know me, but he said, "Bring him over." And so I went over there. This guy had been trying to put me in someplace for 4.5, 5 hours. Nobody'd take me. And finally, he got me in this detox where Dr. Paul was. And they put me right in that detox and strapped me down. And I took, my time of detoxing, yelling and screaming, frothing at the mouth, getting no mercy whatsoever. And then they let me up the next day, and Dr. Paul came to see me. And I'd take 3 steps and laugh, and 3 steps and cry, and throwing up, and went detox. And they told me, "Eat a banana." I said, "Why?" If you get your mouth full of bananas, you'll shut up. We don't want to hear any of your complaints. We don't hear any of your crap. Eat a banana. You need the potassium. And so they gave me a bunch of bananas, and they tied me down when I yelled and screamed, and they let me up and let me walk and laugh and cry and kiss them goodbye and all that stuff. A detoxing, 11 days in that detox, I detoxed again from whatever else it was. And about Well, I was in there 52 days. I had hid some narcotics from some people, and I got drunk and forgot where I hid them. At 52 days sober, I had a spiritual awakening in a meeting there in the detox. Ah! I remember where they are. I remember where it is. People said, what? Never mind. I don't know what step I was on at 52 days clean and sober, but I had to get that dope back to those people right away or they were going to hurt somebody. So I worked step 9. Or maybe I worked the 9 steps because they came knocking at the door. You know how that is. Anyway, then they had these people come into detox from the H&I institution people, hospital and institution people. They had these little sober people, clean and sober people. They put on their little pinstripe suits, and they'd come over to the hospital. We're all in there. There was 39 of us in there, shaking and baking. And these little, if you want to stay clean and sober, well, you can come go with us. Oh, really? He said, well, you're going to have to get a sponsor before you leave here, so you better be nice to us. And so I picked this one guy. His name was Rotten Ron. Little guy, kind of a banshee-looking little guy, 9 years sober. He married the same woman 5 times. He said that in his story. He married her 5 times, married and divorced 5 times, and then his sponsor said to leave her alone for a little while, and she married some guy and left. But then he married 4 other women, married 9 times, and he was single. So I knew he knew something about relationships. I had one that wasn't working real well. So he come to me and he said, we drew straws and I lost. I said, so what does that mean? He said, I'm your sponsor. I said, oh, really? What's a sponsor? A friend? He said, no, if you want a friend, get a dog. I got one. He hates me. He said, right. He said, well, I hate you too. I said, well, I hate everybody. He said, well, that's good. Let's start there. It's not necessary that you love everybody in order to stay sober. And he came and got me. One day he showed up and he said, they're going to have a meeting here. And they put all 39 of us in a circle, all the patients and detox, 39 of us in a circle. And they said, you can take each other's inventory. So they started talking around. They started on my left, and they went around. 38 people said I was going to get drunk when I got out. They gave me my first AA resentment that day. And I said, well, I'm not going to get drunk, and screw you. And I share that for one reason only. This is not a popularity contest here, folks. Don't worry about being popular. And screw the vote, because 37 years later, I'm the only one out of 39 that stayed sober, and all the rest of them were dead by the time I had 15 years. Nothing, no pun intended. It's just they gave me a resentment. I stayed sober for at least a year or 2 on that. My sponsor come and got me and took me over to the house and said, you got to go in there and keep your mouth shut. I said, what? Yeah, go in the house and keep your mouth shut. I said, well, who's going to tell her what's wrong with her? Somebody's got to tell her what's wrong with her. He said, I don't know who's going to tell her what's wrong with her, but it's not going to be you that's going to tell her what's wrong with her. Keep your mouth shut. So I went in, sat down, and shut up. Pretty soon he come and got me, and I started going to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. I went home, and I knocked on the door, and I said, I got to go to AA every day for the rest of my life. What are you going to do? She said, I'm going to Al-Anon, the kid's going to Alateen, the dog's going to Alley Dog, and the cat's going to Alley Cat. And we've released your ass. Huh. Well, good. Take care of the bills, too, while you're at it. She said, well, I have been. They took me to this meeting, and they said, we're going to take you to this meeting, and we're going to see how you do at this meeting, and it's going to be your home group, and you're going to get to be the secretary, whatever that means. All right. So they took me to this meeting, and they railroaded me into being the secretary, and right away I could see I'm pretty observant, and they couldn't get enough money on their 7th tradition to have a cake every week for birthdays. And so I made him a plaster Paris cake with holes in it so he could stick candles up to 20 years. They didn't have anybody there at that meeting that was sober longer than that. So they didn't. And then they bitched because they didn't have fresh cake every week. They're never satisfied. And they wanted a hug. Everybody's got a hug. Got a hug. When you put your arms around each other, God's in the midst, and you'll know that love flows. I said, you better quit hugging me too long, or I'm going to knee you right where it hurts, buddy. Unwrap them arms. I'm getting a tingling sensation. All this hugging around here. One day after the meeting, this guy come up to me. He wasn't short enough to be a midget or tall enough to be a man. Weird little guy. Had a welder's hat on, pulled down over one ear. Had on a wife beater and a pair of cut-off Levi's, and he had on thongs, but he'd painted his feet black with shoe polish, so it looked like he had socks on. I'd seen him. He was a treasurer in another meeting I went to, and they asked for a treasurer's report, and he stood up and said, I stole all the money, and I ain't paying it back. And they said, you got to keep doing it till you get it right. And I said, what do you want? He said, will you be my sponsor? I said, oh, geez, man. I was kind of hoping maybe a banker or somebody would come along, ask me to sponsor him. I said, just a minute. My sponsor was standing over in the corner. I went over to my sponsor, and I said, see that guy over there? He said, yeah. I said, he just asked me to be his sponsor. And my sponsor said, yeah, I know. I sent him over. Said, you go over there and tell him you'll be his sponsor and do exactly what he says. That didn't make sense to me. Still don't. But I didn't argue with my sponsor, because if I argue with my sponsor, he spits on you and the little vein in his forehead pulsates and goes crazy. I went back to this guy and said, my sponsor said, I got to be your sponsor. What do you want to do? He said, I want to ride home. All right. Well, I got a big AA car. I was sober long enough to have an AA car and get a personalized tag. I showed him. I bought a Mark IV Lincoln, had 140,000 miles on it, had a hood longer than a horse dream, and I put my tag on there, AA car. You want to know how I'm doing? Look at my car. That's how I'm doing. Look at my Lincoln out here. He said, I want to ride home. So, okay, you go out this door, I'll go out that door. He said, no, I want to go with you. And he grabbed me by the arm. We went out the door where them two guys were that were greeters. And he said to them greeters, Keith's my new sponsor. I said, don't tell people I'm your sponsor. And guys laughed and said, boy, it's going to be fun to watch you two grow. We get in the car, and first thing he does, he starts telling me all the sick stuff he did. Sick sex stuff. Sick. Then he said, did you ever do anything like that? I said, well, yeah. And I started telling him stuff I wasn't going to tell nobody. And then he said to me, you're sick. You're the sickest person I know. I said, all right, I'm taking you home, and I'll be back to get you, and we'll go to another meeting. So I took him home, let him out, and I took off. Come 8 o'clock, I went and got him. He jumped in my car. I said, why don't you comb your hair? He said, I did. Hey, you did? Really? Why don't you put on some different clothes? I did. Oh, you did? He gets in the car and he said, how about this? Then he starts talking about sick stuff. He said, did you ever do anything like that? I said, yeah. I'm telling him all my stuff. We get to the meeting. He goes right to my sponsor and said, you ought to hear the sick stuff he left out of his fifth step. I took him to hear Chuck Chamberlain, the great white father. We sat on the front row. Chuck levitated the deal, talked about the big book and everything. And we're sitting right on the front row. And Chuck got through. He said, Drum, good luck. What does that mean? Anyway, we get in the car, and this guy gets in the car and he says, we need a miracle. What, we need a miracle? Yeah, we need a miracle, like a burning bush, a sign, or a parting of the waters or something. I'm thinking, if I had some lighter fluid, I'd torch the hedge over there, but I had a .45 automatic in the glove box. Well, I should change that since Fort Hood. I had a .22 in the glove box. And I put it upside of his head and told him, pray, we was going to do step 3. I didn't have any floating resentment, so I let him slide on that one. He jumped out of my car and ran back in that meeting where my sponsor was and rat-finked out and told my sponsor I put a gun to his head and made him do step 3. My sponsor said, yeah, I know, ain't he spiritual? We were miracles, absolute miracles. Me and him run into it. They were having one of them meetings where they read in the back of the book the spiritual awakening thing. And we run into that meeting and we sit down and we said, when are we going to see ours? And then people in there said, you are one, you idiot. Look in the mirror. You are a miracle. We were. We're absolute miracle. And, he showed up at my house and said, I need to do the steps. And he's knocking on the door with a big book in his hand. And I went over there, opened the door, and there he was. Looked like his one foot was hooked in a concrete and the other part was headed for Tijuana, man. He was, what do you want? He said, I want to work the steps like you did. And, okay, I'm powerless over alcohol. My life's unmanageable. Come on in. I'm crazy. You're crazy. I understand that. So we're in the right place. And, let's, get on our knees and do the 3rd step prayer. And he said, you're not going to put that gun to my head. No. We got on our knees and did the 3rd step prayer, and the cat walked by and looked funny at us. And I put my arm around him, and we're down on our knees doing that 3rd step prayer, and I had that tingling sensation and questioned my sexuality again. But he jumped up, and he threw a bunch of blank paper out in front of me. He said, there's my 4th step. And there wasn't nothing on it. I said, you got to write, bring it to your sponsor, do all that stuff, 4th step, 4-column inventory. He said, I can't write. He threw me a pen, and he said, I'll talk, you write. He started talking, and I started writing. Then he said, you ever do anything like that? And I said, yeah. So I thought, we invited God in here, and he can't read or write. So I just put some of my stuff in his. What the heck? Don't question it, man. If God sends a dumpster, put your stuff in it right then. Get it out, lay it out. I put it right in there. Pretty soon he jumped up and kissed me on the cheek and said, we got it now. I said, absolutely, let's go outside and burn it. We burnt that one down to the last little white nub. And he kissed me and ran out and got in his car and waved real big in front of God and the neighbors and said, I love you. And down the street he went. And it went from the head to the heart. Standing in my front yard, it went from the head to the heart. It went from the head to heart. And don't look for something that ain't here, folks. It's all about that very thing. Relieve me of bondage of self, that I might give my time, my whatever I might have at that time, the sick things that I did, so that that guy could feel like he could relieve himself of the bondage of his secrets. I've listened to over 1,200 fifth steps in 37 years of sobriety. I'm not a priest. I'm not in the field. I'm just a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, active member in Alcoholics Anonymous, where I go. And many of those fifth steps have been in institutions, prisons, various places where I've been able to go and serve as to give back, because hospital and institution people brought it to me. Sue and I both do that a lot. Matter of fact, I firmly believe, it's my guide benchmarks, is if I'm out here Friday night doing this, next Wednesday night I better be in some kind of a jail or institution or a nut ward giving it away for nothing, because this stuff out here on Friday and Saturday nights, heady wine. All these workshops, we're not specialists in anything. It's the things that I do down in the trench that keep me sober. I'm grateful to be able to participate with my family and show you that my family has enjoyed recovery. My daughter hated me, and she hated me because I made her go to Alateen. And she came home and crying, said, I don't like to go to those meetings. I said, baby, I don't like to go to them either. But I'm going, and you're going, and Mom's going. And that's the way we started out. Because the hell we came out of, there was no debate. There was no debate. And we made her go to those meetings until she wanted to go to those meetings. I remember when that little girl, 13 and a half, 14 years old, came home from an Alateen meeting, and some little girl come in from a beaten home and came in that Alateen meeting, and my daughter was able to get her and comfort her and assure her that she was in a safe place. You talk about singleness of purpose. That's where the kids should be, in an Alateen meeting. And if you don't take them to Alateen meetings, shame on you. This crap is, I've heard them enough. I'm not going to make them go to an Alateen meeting. They need to be in their own meeting where they have their own God, where they have their own identity. That's where recovery of our children, not sitting on their butt in an AA meeting. And if you don't have Alateen in your community, you need to get sponsors and keep it going, because that is an integral part of family recovery. Today, people say, well, I'll just save a seat for my kid. Let me tell you something slick. There's stuff on that street out there that's going to rob their minds. They'll be vegetables by the time they get to a seat in Alcoholics Anonymous. So I'm on my high horse about family recovery, but it saved our family. It put our family back together. And my daughter went through Alateen, graduated into Al-Anon, and has 37 years of family recovery, and got herself spiritually fit to be attracted to a healthy man. Can you imagine that? The child of an alcoholic went to the program of Alateen and Al-Anon, got a God in her life, and got herself spiritually fit to be attracted to a healthy man. Wow. Wow. What a benefit. And my son-in-law, I sit in my son-in-law's house and I look at the way he treats my daughter, the way he treats his wife. I look at the way my son-in-law treats his children, his two little girls. There's no holes in their walls. See? There's no yelling going on, screaming going on. They're a happy home. They have their problems, but they're a happy home. And my daughter, our daughter, sponsored over 20 women that have over 20 years in the program. Our daughter has a sponsor that she's had for over 28 years consistently that's still in the program. Our daughter, when I call her, says, Dad, if you ever drink again, you'll never see the children. That's not a threat. That's a fact, you see. And my daughter has forgiven me. Took 8 years of sobriety before my daughter could sit with me, next to me, and have quietness, a feeling that all had been taken care of. There was nothing left out. Our daughter and her family can call the same phone number and get her mom and dad. The kids can call the same phone number and get grandma and grandpa. The kids love their grandparents. They live halfway around the world. They live in Milan, Italy. And we are a part of their lives. And they couldn't come to see us because the children were in school. We got Skype so we could have pictures and we could sit and see each other. We are a part of our grandchildren's lives. They know us. And Grandma has a great relationship with the oldest girl, the granddaughter. She's 14. She looks like she's 19. And she wants to be 19. She's not sure how to approach it. And her mother's guarding her. But we have a great relationship. I remember whenever our daughter first had this little baby girl, she brought this, Sue went over there when she had the first child. Sue went to Italy to see, be with her daughter and the granddaughter when they were born. After that little girl was like 18 months old, why my daughter said, Dad, I want to bring, Nicole is her name, I want to bring Nicole to America so she'll come meet her grandpa. That's okay. And so we made arrangements, and they were coming to America, and everything was cool. And we go down to Bradley Terminal down in Los Angeles International Airport, and I position myself by the little cart that has all the balloons on it and stuff, you know, and a psychological approach there so that the kid could see all the fancy glitter. And here come our daughter down up the deal with this little girl. And she's laughing and kicking. And Grandma's standing there, and our daughter's standing there. And my daughter handed me that little girl, and I danced around like a crazy old grandpa and danced. And that little girl's eyes sparkled, and she giggled. And she's looking at those things behind me, I'm sure, but I looked, and that little baby girl knows not the way I treated her mama. She knows not the way I treated grandma. And she has no reason to fear me. No reason to fear me, because I'm gentle. I'm a gentle man. And she has grown up to know that I am a gentle man, her grandpa. And she sends me little pictures now on my phone. And we are a part of their life. We are a part of their life. My father, the rotten alcoholic father that was a lawyer and could do no wrong and was always right and judged me and condemned me and drank with me. He and I got sober. I got sober May 11, 1976. 14 months later, he called me up and he said, if you can do it, I'm twice the man you are. And if you can get sober and stay sober, by God, I can too. And he never drank again. For 27 years, he never drank again. He asked me to be his sponsor, and I said, nah, I think I'd rather be your spiritual advisor. But we had our issues. It took a long time. Took a long time for the family amends, where there's many layers of pain and condemnation and judgment. But we got it right. We got it right. And he was able to die. I was able to stand there next to the family. I was able to, when his wife died, my stepmother, I was able to stand next to him, a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And we were able to be a part of the family, and we are a part of the family. Sue's family passed on, and her mother her mother was terribly jealous of the program Al-Anon, because she felt it took her away from, took her daughter away, and that's her story. I'll let her tell it. But it took years and years of that for healing, and ultimately we have closure on that, because death is the ultimate closure. Some amends cannot be made. I owed a lot of money, and I had to pay it back, and I had to set out a life of sobriety, and I had a lot of amends to make. And sometimes, if a character defect got me into trouble, I had to use a character defect to get me out of trouble. And therefore, by the time I was 9 years sober, I had to make amends for the way I was making amends. And so my sobriety has not been without surrender after surrender after surrender. Everything that I reached for failed me. Everything in my life had to fail me before I would go to my God. Before I would go to my God. The only thing that has not failed me has been my daughter, because I have never, since May 11th, 1976, I have never had any expectations of her, and therefore she has never failed me. And I had to make a lot of amends, and I had a lot of surrenders. Had a lot of people that were after me because I'd been involved. When I sobered up, I'd been involved in organized crime over 19 years, and I had to separate myself from those people. Separate myself from a criminal way of life. People talk about a way of life. I had a way of life before I got here. But ironically, I mentioned Jim Estelle and I were on the same program. He was a warden from Texas. And I ended up on a program in Alcoholics Anonymous, and the FBI agent who had my case when I was 9 years sober, he was trying to put me away. The FBI agent that had my case, he and I ended up in Alcoholics Anonymous together on the same program. I mean, honestly, this guy spit in my face and said, I'm going to make you drink. Of course, when you say that to an alcoholic, that just reconfirms the fact that I'm not going to. But he was drinking, and he finally hit a bottom. Came day, and I went back in Wisconsin, and we were on the same program together. I mean, only in Alcoholics Anonymous. See, that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and life begins. I didn't come here to turn it off. I came here to turn it on. I didn't come here to be a sad story. I come here to be a happy story. My sobriety has had ups and downs, to say the least. And there's been near misses and near-death experiences. and I've gone through many, many things, but all those experiences have just made me stronger. What doesn't kill you just makes you strong. You just have to quit whining about it like an alcoholic and get it done. And thank God for strong sponsorship, because strong sponsorship is what has given me my backbone. It's allowed me to stand up and look them in the eye and walk down that street with the dignity of a sober alcoholic. God bless you. Thank you.